Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Michael Trick, the Dean here at CMUQ, and I'd like to welcome you all to the Dean's Lecture Series here at Carnegie Mellon University in Qatar. Tonight's guest is His Excellency Dr. Abdulaziz bin Nasser Al Khalifa, the Secretary General of the Qatar National Planning Council. Both His Excellency and the National Planning Council have been longtime supporters of CMUQ. In fact, the very first Dean's Lecture at CMUQ was in 2011, and we hosted the then Secretary General of the National Planning Council, Dr. Ibrahim, to discuss the National Development Strategy 2011 to 2016. Later that year, we had our very first Memorandum of Understanding with the Planning Council, formally entering into a partnership to promote education, science, and research together. For nearly 15 years, the Planning Council has been an integral part of the annual CMUQ Research Symposium, Meeting of the Minds. Each year, they sponsor a special category of Meeting of the Minds for projects that contribute to the Qatar National Vision 2030. This adds an important dimension to Meeting of the Minds, showing students how their work can have national impact. His Excellency, Dr. Abdulaziz, was appointed Secretary General of the National Planning Council about a year ago, but he has been a friend of CMUQ for much longer. 7 years ago, almost to the day, His Excellency spoke at the Dean's Lecture Series in his role as CEO of the Qatar Development Bank, sharing his vision on how entrepreneurship and small businesses can transform Qatar. Today, His Excellency serves in many key roles that direct and drive business and investment in Qatar, including President of the Civil Service and Government Development Bureau, a member of the Supreme Council for Economic Affairs and Investment, and Chairman of the Board of Directors at the Qatar Finance and Business Academy. Please, everyone, join me in welcoming His Excellency Dr. Abdulaziz back to the Dean's Lecture Series.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here today. And as he mentioned, I was here actually 7 years ago. But it was a bigger crowd, to be frank. And I think most of them were entrepreneurs, people who wanted to start projects. And I'm glad that I'm here also today to talk to you about Qatar National Vision 2030 and the National Development Strategy 2024-2030. But I'm also glad to report that some of the crowd 7 years ago have started projects here in Qatar. And I was lucky enough to support them through Qatar Development Bank. So it's nice to see that actually students from CMU turns into entrepreneurs, start their own projects in Qatar, and expand globally. And to be frank, this is what we're aiming to do. This is what Qatar National Vision is all about. Today, if we talk about our national vision, it's a 31 pages document. I'm not sure if, show of hand, if any of you have read it fully. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 7 people have. I think the rest of you have heard about it, knows maybe the high-level information about it. But what is it? What does it stand for? For us in Qatar, our national vision is very clear. It sets us on an ambitious path. It shows us the direction. Where are we heading? And for us, we want to create a country that's modernized in 2030, that could compete locally, internationally. We want a country that stands on strong grounds, and that would happen through 4 main pillars. The people, which is the foundation of Qatar. We are very blessed with our natural resources, but we are even more blessed and privileged with the right leadership that have utilized that resource rich or that money into creating the right people, into helping the human resources in the country, becoming the foundation to create Qatar, to prosper. That also is to be done through economic development. And our economic development approach in Qatar for 2030 is to be able to sustain our economic growth, to create wealth for the people in the country and for future generations. And by future generations, ensuring that whatever we do on the environmental angle also support sustaining. And as you know, national visions, strategies are all about trade-offs. What do you do more, and what would be the impact of what you're doing more on what you are letting go of? And we're not letting go of the environment. We're being very cautious. Qatar has set itself on a very clear path into developing on all four main pillars. Society. How are we developing the society? Being internationalized, but at the same time preserving our values, preserving our heritage, ensuring that whatever we do would make us reach our goals. We are no strangers to planning. And I'm not sure if you know this, but Qatar was the first GCC country to actually launch a national vision. That was done back in 2008. When we launched our national vision by His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani at that time, when we were the heir apparent and the father Amir, it was very clear to us the destination. But in order for us also to reach that destination, we've created national development strategies. And these are action plans to move us from point A to point B. And as you could see, the first one was launched in 2011 up to 2016, second one 2018, if I'm not mistaken, to 2022, then 2024 to 2030. And as you could see, there are always almost a 2 years gap. What does that mean? It means that we actually take time and we listen and we hear. The planning normally happens at the center of government. And we as MPC, which used to be called as Planning and Statistics Authority, we take our time. We listen to what's happening. We understand the competition regionally and globally. We understand the international trends and what are the global trends. And based on that, we act. At the same time, we understand what went right and what went wrong. Because we're on a journey, and again, it's a journey, it's a continuous journey. 2030 is a journey, it's not a destination. Because, as I'm sure and you are sure, there will be subsequent visions, inshallah, in the future. But what did Qatar go through? We went through phases. Prior to 2010, it was the phase of creating and understanding what do we have from infrastructure perspective, but also from natural resources perspective. As you all know, gas was discovered, oil was discovered, that have created immense amount of wealth for the nation. Second phase, we've built our national champions. We've built the infrastructure, and 2022 for us was not the target. It was a milestone. It helped us in Qatar to create a very clear and firm time plan to consider and finish the infrastructure on time. The following phase that we're going through is to reap the benefits of whatever we have developed as an infrastructure. And don't underestimate the value of our national champions. And what do I mean by national champions? The likes of Qatar Airways, the likes of Al Jazeera, the likes of QMB, BN Sport. All of these are national champions, Uridu, that have created an impact, both in the human resources, where they become a catalyst for human capital, but at the same time on sectors. They became main players in sectors where they compete locally and they compete internationally. So Qatar has been able to expand and export both services and goods. And of course, Qatar Foundation is considered as one of those national champions. Qatar Petroleum, which is now Qatar Energy, is one of those national champions. The next phase of Qatar is to ensure that we can balance where are we heading, how are we competing, and how can we build the right competitive advantage in terms of being able to expand further. Infrastructure is clear. National champions do exist. But then what's next? Our National Development Strategy 3 answers to that. Yet, there is a reform that needs to happen. We do understand that we have done a lot, but there are challenges that we need to answer to. Among those are those 8 main challenges that are mentioned in front of you. We need to evolve the role of the government. Due to this rapid expansion, the government have played a big role. And that big role have made the government, in a way or another, crowd out the private sector. So we do understand these challenges. And the reforms that we are doing is ensuring that the government becomes a regulator, and we open the door for the private sector to become the main players and the operators in the main sectors. We do understand that we need the business environment to be better. We have a good business environment, but when it comes to competition, there is much more to be done. We do understand that we need innovation capabilities. We have some, but this takes me back to the same point above. We need the private sector to be able to reap the benefits of this innovation capabilities. We need the private sector to be the leader within innovation in Qatar. The workforce, and maybe here in the workforce element, it's a big debate and a big discussion. What comes first? The demand, and then you produce the right workforce for that demand, or do you produce the right workforce and the demand is going to be created? It's a vicious cycle, and we're going through that. What we do in Qatar is that we are building the workforce planning for the nation in terms of public sector and private sector. And believe me, it's not as easy as it says. In the government, we do understand in the next 5 years what do we require. We know how many employees exactly do we need. But yet, do you sacrifice by not recruiting Qataris to push them to the private sector? Or do you take Qataris in the government because you actually require them in the government? And that expansion and that growth is the trade-offs that I mentioned. Strategies is all about these trade-offs. And what options do we take? And what decisions do we make? The institutionalizing of accountability. And I'll give you an example from the government. In the government, we've just started, not just actually 2 years ago, we've started our performance management system. Prior to that, we didn't have a performance management system in the government. And because Qatar is very unique, what used to happen is that 97% of all government employees were receiving excellent grades. If you compare that to outcome, it's not linked. So we needed to install a performance management system in the government, taking into consideration these practices from the private sector and imposing them on the government, but being cautious of our social fabric and how to ensure that also we don't break the system, but we create the right incentives within the system to reward performance. The new economic specialization, clusters. By understanding that we have a national champion, it doesn't mean that only by having a company we can compete. We need to create a cluster. And the concept of clustering is understanding the value chain. So if we go to media, having Al Jazeera, having VN Sport, having others is a great thing. But you need the periphery around them. You need to understand that we have the right content developers, the right producers, the right technology, the right training for the right people to be able to produce content. All of that is by building the right cluster around those national champions to ensure that we could compete. And by not only focusing at what we have, but the future. What's going to remain competitive in the next 5 years? What is going to make the difference in 7 years from now? And building that from today to ensure that whatever great universities like yours produce are actually required in 4 years' time, 5 years' time, to be able to build competitive advantage for the country. Responsible citizenship and self-reliance. Qataris are privileged, yes, but doesn't mean that we are spoiled. Qataris are among the smartest, if not the smartest, when it comes to work. And I've seen it firsthand. It's not, I know I'm biased, I'm a Qatari, but I've seen it. When given the right challenge, when put in the right position, they are very capable to compete on an international level. Look at the World Cup 2022. We've done an amazing job. But at the same time, being a Qatari doesn't mean that you have a guaranteed job. We want to ensure also that there is self-reliance. Active balancing with social policies. We have social cohesion. We have values. So we want to ensure that our policies are also talking to that perspective, and that by creating the development, we're not impacting the values that we have, and we're not impacting negatively the cohesion that we're trying to create. By the way, doing all of that has a time span. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but 2026 is the year where the expansion of the North Field is going to start. Pumping gas, more money. Which means what? We don't actually have to do this. We could relax. That's a big issue. It's how can you ensure that you remain competitive in an environment where money is not the issue? This is what we're installing. This is what Qatar National Vision 2030 is all about. This is what all the plans are all about. If you notice His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani in his speeches, especially Shura Council speeches, he have always mentioned that this is about creating responsible citizenship. This is about being able to compete, not on a national level only, on an international level. NDS 3 for us, the National Development Strategy 3 for us, is the final step. But again, it's not a destination, it's a journey. But how can we reach? And how can we ensure that we're achieving this? We have multiple layers. There are some national outcomes that we're supervising, and it's very clear, those 7 main national outcomes, and I'm going to discuss them in further details. We have sector outcomes that we're also supervising and ensuring that they get delivered. We have initiatives that would make us reach those sector outcomes and those national outcomes, and we have projects. So we're building an OKR system, an objectives and key results system. At the same time, we have a KPI system to ensure that we're reaching where we want. The 7 national priorities. And again, it's a trade-off. The first one is economic growth. And reaching or creating the right economic growth, but ensuring that we're very productive, we're very competitive while doing that. Creating a very innovative, diversified economy is the goal that we're after. And that goal is very measured, by the way. And you will see those measurement tools that we're using. Fiscal sustainability. We cannot just go hayway and spend all the money that we have to create the rest of the 6 outcomes. We need to ensure that we're very disciplined into creating the fiscal sustainability to ensure preserving the wealth for future generations. Future-ready workforce. And if you have noticed in some other countries, whenever there is an economic plan, it's jobs, jobs, jobs. I know that we don't have a job security issue in Qatar, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to plan well and ensure that our plans, especially when it comes to workforce, are answering to these challenges. Cohesive society. We have our values, and our values are very unique. We need to preserve them. And when I talk about trade-offs, if we push a lot to competition and internationalization, it's going to impact the local family. And we want to preserve the Qatari family. And what does that mean? That means that we want the father, the mother, the family to be grown in an environment where it's not very demanding from job perspective. Yes, they need to compete. And yes, they need to have self-accomplishment. At the same time, they have responsibilities. So how do we balance between this modern life demand on both males and females while preserving what we have for the Qatari family and those unique values that the Qatari families have? Quality of life. Quality of life goes into many definitions. And I think some of our neighbors have chosen a direction where quality of life is tourism. Just ensuring that you bring as many people and raising the entertainment standards. For us, it's not only entertainment standards. It's to ensure that everyone in the country, everyone is living the best standards that we can afford and ensuring that everyone is treated fairly and equally. Environmental sustainability. And this is sometimes when I speak in international community with international partners and in the UN, people look at us in a suspicious way. We're the largest producer of LNG and you're talking about environment. Yes, we do understand the challenge, but we're very serious about preserving our environment. We do have great plans and implementation within Qatar Energy to ensure that Qatar is delivering on its promises when it comes to environment sustainability, government excellence. And in government excellence, we mean we need to install what I've mentioned before, the performance management system, but yet we want our government to be among the best in delivering our services. 2 years ago, we launched our Government Excellence Award. And I'm speaking in a candid way and an honest way here. It's not a new program. It was there since 2014, but we did not launch it at that time. The government took a decision because we were not ready and because we thought only one ministry would win. And I took a deliberate decision with the permission of the Prime Minister to move forward because we need a baseline. We need to create a baseline in order for us to measure how do we develop from the current baseline. And we launched it 2023. It was a great hit, to be frank. I saw how ministers are competing. I saw how, in each ministry, by the way, we have a department called Strategy, Quality and Innovation. I saw how the managers of all of these departments are very eager to ensure and to show and demonstrate that they provide the best service that they can. And currently, while I moved also, or I'm wearing another hat in planning, I'm seeing their plans. Every ministry has a very good plan to ensure that the customer is at the center of the services that they provide. This is a way that the government is dealing with achieving excellence that I haven't seen before. Now, as I've mentioned, there are KPIs and OKRs. The KPIs for us is a great tool, which we are measuring. For example, in economic development, and I will not go through all of them, but for example, in economic development, I'm not sure if you've seen our Q3 results last year. Our non-hydrocarbon sector growth in GDP was 4.5%. Better than we expected, more than we targeted for. What does that mean? More jobs for the private sector, more growth in the private sector. So the measurement of these is not only to measure and report back, it's also to understand where are we lacking behind or what's not going right, and then adopting and moving forward. I will not go through them in order not to bore you, but at NDS3, maybe we're dealing differently with implementation. We have very clear sectors and clusters that we're targeting. They are 24. We have clear number of transformational initiatives, north of 300. We have very clear projects, more than 1,000. But what else could this mean? We could turn into an analysis paralysis situation because we have too much to supervise and to monitor. So we prioritize. And the message that I want to deliver here is that it's very clear from the top. What do we require? What do we need? And it's very clear how to measure it. And it's very detailed in terms of who should do what, when, and at what cost. But at the same time, we're prioritizing to ensure impact. And we have a very clear economic impact model to ensure that what we do and each real spent is well spent. Again, three-phased approach. And the governance into this is very clear to us. 2024 to 2026, we're looking at reforms and policies, ensuring that the government steps back, give the private sector the role. 2026 to 2028, to expand investment. And it's timed with the gas, by the way. 2028 to 30, to achieve the vision and prosper and look for what's beyond 2023. As I've mentioned before, we're no strangers to planning, but also planning in Qatar has went through development. At MPC, we went from a ministry, and I think if we take it even further back, it was a council. It was chaired by His Highness the Father Emir at that time when he was the Emir. Then it turned into another council chaired by His Highness when he was the heir apparent. Then it turned into a ministry, then into an authority, reports to the Prime Minister. Now it's back into a council. And this council now, the chairman of the council is the Prime Minister. I'm privileged to also serve as the Secretary General and a member in this council. We have 9 ministers with us in this council, and we report directly to His Highness the Emir to ensure that whatever we plan for is also getting implemented, and to ensure that there is supervision into implementation. We meet monthly, so on a monthly basis, we actually measure our performance. We have a lot of those tracking nice gadgets and tools, but I've decided and I've taken a decision to make it as simple as it gets. Simple traffic light system. It's either red or amber or green. And I can't tell you how simplicity is very effective. It delivers the right message. It shows everyone where you're heading. Flashy demonstrations and showing a lot of charts could get you somewhere, but doesn't get you the impact that you require. Our mandate is very clear at MPC. We are mandated to supervise the implementation, but this is not it only. We have a very clear mandate on decision-making support. And what do we mean by that? Trade-offs. How do we ensure that when we take a decision and when we try to do something, what would be the impact on other sectors and what would be the trade-offs? Performance monitoring, which I just mentioned, the simple traffic lights, ensuring that everyone is in the green zone. Delivery support. Sometimes we get tasked to support some certain entities into delivery. Strategic foresights. And this is something new, by the way, in a way or another, because we just launched our Future Strategic Foresight Center. Actually, the new director is joining in a week time. And over there, the mandate is to create the next vision for Qatar. The mandate is to understand what the future holds to us and how can we and the government be ready for it. To understand what type of studies we need to create. And we're creating some future labs over there. These future labs look at policies and how can these policies be changed to be able to adopt from whatever regulations need to change in the future to be able to compete on a regional level and international level. Statistics and data. One of the biggest projects that we currently run at MBC is the data project. We have a very big transformation plan. It has finished the planning phase and now we are into implementation. We want to ensure that we can triangulate data. There is something in data science that's called the golden record. We want to ensure that we reach the golden record. That when we are asked about a certain data point, we could answer with certainty. Today it was launched, there is a datathon, similar to a hackathon. And I think it was also shared with your students. We're building bridges with the academic sphere in Qatar to ensure also that we can reap the benefits of having all of this data scientists and the academics and the studies that universities are carrying in Qatar on data, and how can we benefit from that. Qatar Foundation vision is unlocking human potential, right? We are trying to unlock Qatar potential by ensuring that we also navigate through these trade-offs and ensuring that decisions that are made will make us reach the outcome that we require. Think part of the economic growth and the population composition is a trade-off. How many non-Qataris versus how many Qataris? Resilience. We are a very resilient country. We've been through a lot, by the way. I would doubt that some other countries will not stand what we have been through. Yet, we get out of these issues stronger and better. Liberalization and the local industry growth. How much do you liberalize? Do you open new industries? Do you liberalize certain industries that we have in Qatar? And what would be the impact on the local players? Because this could mean FDI coming. Expat attraction and the cultural preservation. How do we balance that? And this is a big challenge. Fiscal stability and the government delivery. Very clear, dedicated program budgeting. We're changing the way we're dealing with budgets to ensure that it's attached to programs, to ensure that it's attached to outcomes. Growth and environmental sustainability. These are normally trade-offs that some other countries struggle with. In Qatar, we're very clear on what do we do and how do we carry these trade-offs. I will close with this quote. And this is something personal, to be frank. I've been privileged to work in many areas. And sometimes people in their studies and their career think that they are superheroes, that they can deliver, that they're capable and Superman, sometimes superwoman. And they think that by being them, they can make a huge difference. I beg to differ, actually. No one, no single individual can deliver without a team. And if there is someone who believes that, their impact is going to be very minute, very small. So my humble advice is always try to deliver through other people. Because this is where you could create the impact. This is where you're going to differentiate yourself. Yes, trust yourself, but trust others. Build a team around you. Ensure that you understand people's feelings and what actually makes them worry and what makes them deliver. By that, you don't have the power of you only. You have the power of the group, which is much, much more impactful and bigger and better. I would like to open the floor for questions and answers. I hope I did not bore you. And thank you again.
Well, thank you. Not boring in the least. So we do have time for a few questions. We have microphones set up on the left and the right. And so if you'd like to line up and ask your questions, I will leave Dr. Abdulaziz to moderate his own Q&A.
Thank you.
Asma Al-Jafari. My question is, in your perspective, what are the top initiatives for the Peru in the past year, in 2024?
For
the top initiatives or
civil
projects.
services? Civil
Yeah.
service?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I think this is a question. Thank you, Asma. This is a question on my other job. So I hold two positions in the Civil Services and Government Development Bureau. And the question is, what were the top initiatives? And I think Government Excellence Award and building on that Government Excellence Award was a big initiative that we're continuing to have. The other one is the Performance Management System. And that is a big project that I'm sure everyone have heard of it and everyone have read it in the news and social media. which is the new human resources law. It took us 2 years and a half. It was very tiring. It was took a lot of time and effort from everyone within the Bureau. And it's now with the Shura Council. We're very hopeful. It's the first human resources law that takes a different perspective into human resources management in the government. It's not about governing only, but empowering, and how to ensure that we can empower the human capital in the government to be able to deliver in a bigger way. Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for the detailed presentation. That was amazing to learn all these details. My question is regarding the tourism industry. You know, there's a very much dedicated focus for promoting tourism industry in Qatar. And I'd like to learn what's your approach or thoughts on promoting Visit Qatar and a lot of dedicated focus and work on that. And what is the role of the NPCA on these issues? Thank you.
Thank you. So tourism is one of the largest, let's say, the most ambitious targets that we have. And my dear friend and colleague Saad Al-Kharji and his team, they've been doing an amazing job. I think you guys have seen the 5 million number for 2025. By the way, the target in 2030 is 6 million. So you could imagine that by now they've reached 5 million. So I'm changing the target for them. We're making it more challenging. But I think going back into the topic, look, we have what it takes. We have the right infrastructure. The Qatari people are very hospitable. The population in the country is very welcoming. What Qatar Airways provides also is very unique. Our airport is among the top globally. We have very unique offering built on what we have done as an infrastructure. So all the stars are aligned, and it makes a lot of sense. From my personal perspective, I think, what impact does it have? So we're not after tourists that wouldn't create the right economic impact, but after tourism that would create the right economic impact while not impacting negatively the social cohesion of Qatar. We have a very unique value proposition. And I think that I've always been asked, what about your neighbors? And all what I could say also about this is, look, I think there is enough on the plate for everyone. And we could and should be building on each other's strengths by having people reaching this part of the globe and exploring what unique propositions each country actually does provide. Sport tourism, for example. It's part of our area of focus. Qatar is very unique in that area, and we're doing very well from that perspective. So it's important. It's part of what we are focused at. We've been delivering on that front, and the ambitions are getting bigger and bigger.
First of all, thank you, Your Excellency, for this informative lecture. I had two quick questions. First one related to private sector. So where does the startup culture come into play when it comes to growing the private sector in Qatar? And the second question, when it comes to attracting high-skilled and high-talent expat, what are some of the action plans that would facilitate such attraction? Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, our National Development Strategy 3 is published. And when I took the role 8 months ago, I made sure that I read every sentence in there and every word. And I was astonished how many times the private sector is mentioned. It's mentioned more than the government, huh? And I don't remember flipping through any page without reading the private sector mentioned over there. So for me, this is a private sector-led development strategy. Ensuring now, as I've mentioned, that the government doesn't create barriers for the private sector is what we're doing. Making sure that we're enhancing private sector role, letting the private sector lead the innovation. The next era in Qatar is the private sector era. Now, we could look at creating a workforce, and I think the second question is how open are we to attract the right skilled workforce? And for me, it ties up to the first question. And what the government has been doing through the Ministry of Labor, through Jasur, if I'm not sure if you guys are all aware about this company, it's called Jasur, which is bridges in English. They're opening the market for the right skill workforce to join Qatar. For the first time, they have something called entrepreneur, رائد أعمال, the visa for someone who just wants to start. They have something called mustaqil, which is independent, freelancers, people who just want to come and start becoming freelancers. All of these are clear milestones that the government have taken to ensure that the private sector will play its rightful role. At the same time, we're empowering the right workforce to exist in Qatar, flourish from Qatar, and not only serve Qatar, but serve the region.
My name is Nizar. I am graduating in business here at Carnegie Mellon in 2025. My question is revolving around the clusters. You spoke a lot about the value of clusters and how many strategies that are being developed around the clusters. What are some challenges that need to be addressed with regards to creating those clusters, especially the ones that you need to create from scratch?
Thank you, Nizar. I think, look, clusters as a concept is also something new in terms of us dealing with it. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is understanding and speaking the same terminology. For example, if we talk about the sports cluster means that we need to ensure that the health services around the sports activities are among the top. Now we have a SPETAR, but the SPETAR handles a certain part of that healthcare. We need more. Sports cluster means that our facilities need to be equipped for families also, because people travel with their families. We're very geared towards certain type of sports. So when you build a sport cluster, you need to understand the whole journey. And what we mean by clusters is the journey from the beginning until the end and the value chain. Understanding what needs to be developed when, by whom, and do we have the enablers for that to be created or not. It's not an easy journey. We looked at other nations, Singapore, for example. They've always approached this from a cluster perspective, and they've been successful at it. But from picking 5 to 7 clusters that you need to create, normally 5 will be successful, 1 or 2 you will face trouble and issues, and they will not be as successful as one wish. But that doesn't mean that you stop. Another element into clusters is building the right workforce by ensuring that you're graduating the right workforce to ensure that you're feeding the private sector the required skills in order for that cluster to exist and flourish. Thank you, Nasser.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, let's again thank His Excellency for a wonderful talk and a wonderful Q&A. Well, as a memento of this occasion, I do have a dish to give you. I don't know how long we've been giving out the dishes. This is your second one. Good. You can continue to work towards the dinner set. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you.